In this video, we're going to talk about nested classes. Take a look at this. Let's say we have class A and class B, and all the members of class B are public. And the only reason why class B's members are public is because class A is using them. Class A needs access to all the members of class B. Now let's say class A is not there, then we can gladly mark all the members of class B as private. Now just because of one class, we are making all the members of class B as public. This is clearly a problem. This will impact one of the major features of object-oriented programming language, is encapsulation. We need to try our best to make as many members as possible to private. But Java gives us a solution to this problem. We can make a class sit inside another class. So a class inside another class. In this case, we just simply put this class A inside class B, so that A being a member of class B, the class A will have access to its private variables, to class B's private variables and private methods. So the problem is solved. Now we can gladly make all the members of B as private. This will improve the encapsulation, and that's clearly a great advantage. Coming to the syntax, it's pretty simple. We have class B. It will have its all member fields and member methods. And within this curly braces, we'll have another class defined, class A, and then it will have its own member fields and member methods. As simple as that. So we're basically nesting a class inside another class. It's called nested class. In that we have static nested class and non-static nested class. This is also called as inner class. Now let's take a look at both these examples in our workbench. See you there. Let's talk about static nested class first. So in here we have the outer class, and then inside it we have another class defined. Within this class we have a method that just simply prints a message. But do take a note of this keyword, static. When we say static, this class in here will not have direct access to the instance variables, because when we have a static member, just as static method, a static class is associated with the class. It's not associated with an instance. In order to access this method met from outside this class, this is how you would do. This is the name of the outer class and then the inner class with the dot operator. You'll give it some name, and then new, you're going to repeat the same thing so that we got an object of the nested class. You can call the method like so. Now this statement makes complete sense, because let's say we have a method which is of static. How do we access that method? We use the class name. That's exactly what we're doing here. This class in here is more or less like a member method. So in order to access this, we can just use the class name, since this is static. And that's what we did. We use the class name to access its member. In this case, it's just another class. And then we do need to create an object of the inner class. That's because the member function that we're trying to access is not static. So we need to have an instance or an object to be able to access this method. So in here we have a new keyword used that will create a new object of the inner class, and using that inner class object we're able to call this method. And let's say if this is static for the time being, let's save the file, and then I bet we will be able to access it directly like so. There it is. Let's undo those changes. If you run this file, then you would just see this message printed. Let's give it a try. There you go. Now let's take a look at non-static nested class or inner class. We have the similar syntax for this. We have an outer class, and inside that we have an inner class. But there's one key difference. This class in here is not static. And the way we access the member methods of the inner class is like this. First of all, we need to create an object of the outer class, and then we will create the object of the inner class using the reference of the outer class. We'll take a look at how it's done, and then we'll be able to access its member methods. So this is how it is. We have an object of outer class, and then you need to have the following syntax to be able to get the control of the inner class and access its member functions. You have the name of the outer class, and then name of the inner class with the dot operator. You give any name in here, and then the object of outer class dot new. This is very important. This is what does the magic. It will create an instance of the inner class, and then here it is. We're able to call that method. If you run this program, you would see this message. Let's quickly do that. There it is. Let's talk about some of the key differences between these two types of nested classes, static and non-static nested classes. Unlike a static nested class, the inner class will have access to the instance variables. For obvious reasons, because this class is not static, hence it is associated with an instance, not with a class. If we have a variable defined in here, then we can gladly access those member fields of the outer class from the inner class. But that's not the case with the inner class in here, because it's static and it does not have access to instance variables. Now that being said, Java does not encourage us to declare any static members in here, be it static fields or static methods inside this inner class. There is one good reason to do so. That's because it will violate the definition of static. When we say a member is static, that will signify that we shouldn't be needing to create an instance to be able to access it. We should be able to access it with just the class name. But if we have a static member in here, for example, there's no way we can access it without ever creating an instance of its outer class. Because only when we create an instance of the outer class will we ever get control of its inner class. So it just doesn't make a lot of sense, and hence the designers of Java decided not to support static members inside a non-static inner class. But that being said, we can still create constants. For example, static final x equals 10, or static final the pi is 3.14, etc. That is allowed inside this class. You can give it a try if you want. And one of the beauty of these inner classes is that you can make use of the access specifiers. just as you do on member methods. You can have public, private, protected, and default access specifiers on a method. In the same way, you can have all those access specifiers for inner class as well. For example, I can make this private. Doing so, obviously we will get an error here because we cannot instantiate the inner class anymore. We can instantiate it, but only within the class in which it is residing. Only the outer class will have the permission to create instance of the inner class. Let's undo that. Now you might be wondering, when we don't have access to, let's go here. When we don't have access to the instance variables, what is the real reason why we would ever want to use a static inner class? One of the key examples which I can explain right now is this in here will have access to private constructor. Let's try to create a constructor. With some message from private constructor. Alright, inside this method we can create an object of this class. Let's comment this line. And now from here, if you run this program, we'll call this method, and we have access. We have created an object of the outer class, but take a note that you cannot create an object of a class whose constructor is private. We cannot create the object directly from this class, but we're able to do so in here. That's because this is a static class, and we're able to call this method without ever creating an instance of its outer class. In here we have never created the instance of the outer class. But whereas coming to inner class, the non-static inner class, we do have to create the instance of the outer class, and we cannot if we have a private method in here. Now let's try to run this program. Run file. Message from private constructor. Great. See you in my next video.